Let's get into another edition of third wave, second rate Norwegian black metal bands. These bands are good. This is by no means a cut to any of these bands. I love these bands. I'm saying that they're second rate because they aren't Darkthrone, Burzum, Satyricon, Over, everything like that. So, Norwegian bands that you may not know a whole lot about. We are listening to the True Northern demo by Det Hedenske Folk. Isn't that an album cover for the ages? How about that? This is dude from Wardruna writing all the songs, and Abaf from Immortal playing drums. Came out in '95. This is the original demo cassette. It was reissued by some label on 10-inch. Only 2 of these songs were reissued on that 10-inch. And then it was reissued again on CD as a split with Abyssic Hate on Bloodless Creations Unlimited. So, that's what we're listening to. And there's only 3 tracks, so if it ends, we're going to be listening to the Iltjarn Nidhogg thing. I guess at the time when I bought this, I don't know, 15 years ago, I thought this was just an Iltjarn thing. I didn't know that it was Iltjarn Nidhogg. And you know, to be honest, when listening to it, I can't tell the difference all that much. But supposedly these songs were written by Nidhogg, and maybe they just couldn't agree on a band name or something. Iltjarn does the vocals, Nidhogg wrote all the music. So that is Svarta Frod, 4-track EP, limited to 550 copies on Norse League Productions. So yeah, that stuff is basically pretty much Iltjarn, maybe a little bit more, I guess less punky, I guess would be the way I want to describe it. Nidhogg sang on this project, Sortvakter, and Iltjarn also, I think, wrote the songs in this band. So this is a 4-piece. I don't think the other 2 guys ever did anything else. Napalm Records put this out with Norse League Productions in 1996. And this is just some... Every dude looks exactly the same. Can you tell they're a 4-piece? That might even actually be bullshit. I wouldn't be surprised if that's just like an inside joke or something. But this sounds a lot like Iltjarn as well. Only there's a drum machine, and the drum machine is unrelentingly just blasting away over and over and over again. So, obviously I'm not the biggest fan of this, but it's pretty good. It's an earlier indication of really necro bands, and that sounding kind of Nordic is a little unique for the time period that this came out, 96. There's a lot of stuff trying to sound like this these days, and again, it's not anything new. However, I am a fan of some Iltjarn. I have some Iltjarn. Not all this stuff is great. And I know there was a time period where I listened to this shit out of this stuff. So I have a hard time remembering what they are like. The problem with Iltjarn, and this probably is, I'm probably not the only one to be trumpeting this issue, is that he does a lot of ambient interludes or outros or intros. And while I like some ambient music, and I think some of Burzum's best tracks, Burzum's best tracks are his ambient stuff. So I think that kind of stuff has its place in a Norwegian black metal record, but the stuff that Ildtjarn did that was ambient, I just don't fucking get it. It doesn't do it for me. So anyways, I believe the half of this Strength and Anger album is ambient and the other half is not. And that's another thing. It's like he'll release some kind of limited exclusive kind of thing under the name of Ildtjarn, and it'll be just all ambient, and it's just completely boring. And then, like, I even love Neptune Towers. I love ambient music that much. But this stuff that Ildtjarn does is just not good. And it also just, I don't think it pairs very well with the kind of music that Ildtjarn is doing. That being said, Forest Poetry is a fucking ripper of an album. Most of these songs are about a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. It's just a bass guitar and like skanky kind of half blasting kind of drums. I would say this is almost like punky, but it's not a far stretch of the imagination to say that this still sounds like Norwegian black metal. And only Ildtjarn can do it in a way that sounds absolutely hypnotic. Just banging away on a 4-string bass and a hi-hat and a snare. It's charismatic enough, and there's enough personality in his material that you can just get so entranced by its unwavering intensity, I guess. So I think it really all comes to fruition on Forest Poetry. Another album that has a lot of ambient. Det Friesend Nordreket. I think these all came out on Napalm. So now we have the discography of Ildtjarn Nidhogg, which has the EP on it. And then they did like a 7-inch track and a couple other things. Northern Heritage wound up kind of being the home of all the reissues of Ildtjarn once people realized that they were great. Napalm Records originally released most of the stuff, but they said Norse League on them. I'm not sure what went on there. But the last thing I've got from Ildtjarn here is the Son of a North Star. And this is a maybe unauthorized reissue by Full Moon Productions. This is a demo released in 92 to 94. Maybe 94. I don't know. But it kind of just sounds like all the Ildtjarn stuff. But Forest Poetry is where it's fucking at. God, this thing's such a piece of shit. Aint Earnest is a great band, and this record fucking rules. The thing about it is, I'm showing this thing off, but it's so water damaged because an original copy of this is really expensive and hard to come by. And also, Willie from this band wrote me. He said that this is an unauthorized remaster out on Carmageddon Media. So it's unauthorized, don't get it. But it is the cheapest version that you're going to find of it. But a lot of people say, and I like to say, I think it's a brilliant, apt comparison that I didn't hear until Marty Worm told me. Aint Earnest is the bolt thrower of Norwegian black metal. And that just fucking, it makes so much sense. They have this, they're so low, they're so baritone and so guttural. And yet they're majestic. There's keyboards all over the place in this music. It's not like orchestral or symphonic in a way, but there's a lot of nice keyboard work harmonizing with the riffing, and it blows apart the headspace that you're listening to this in. It's totally atmospheric. There's lots of acoustic interludes going on. It's just a great band. And this is Beyond the Wandering Moon, the debut. The prior EP, Dark Sorcery, is also really good. I think I have it on 7-inch actually. I find myself listening to And So the Night Became pretty regularly, honestly. Pavement Music reissued it. You shouldn't have a hard time finding this whatsoever, but the songwriting on here is super, super, super good. There will be this super enchanting melodic passage, and then all of a sudden they'll just fucking turn on a dime and get brutal, absolutely fucking brutal. But it doesn't sound like chunky kind of violent sort of death metal. It just sounds so mighty and powerful. And I don't know, there's not really another band I think that does it like Aint Earnest did early on. This might be my favorite full length from them. Beyond the Wandering Moon is fucking killer, but this one is just one I always want to listen to for some reason. I can't really explain it. After that, they did a couple of full lengths. I've got the promo versions here. Shadows of Old is pretty good, honestly. I'm surprised that not a lot more people talk about that one. And Burning the Shroud is also pretty decent. It was recorded, I think all Aint Earnest stuff was recorded in Grieg Holland. So Pinton did a great job on these. I'm trying to think if he did any of the... I think Iltjarn is self-recorded. Yeah, but also Det Hedenske Folk was recorded in Grieg Holland by Erik Pitten Hundvin. Last, but certainly not least, one of my absolute favorite bands, and a band that I've come to enjoy even more in the last few years, is Obtained Enslavement. This is their best record, Witchcraft. But, so, I've gushed about these in earlier videos, but this is the debut, Centuries of Sorrow. Talking about Vic Records again, they reissued the demo with great artwork. There's also a double LP version of this that I'd love to own, but it also has two of their demos. So now we're on to the Iltjarn Nidhogg stuff. Great, great stuff. It's death metal-ish, but it really, really has some forward-thinking kind of foreshadowing of what they would become. There's some orchestral kind of stuff going on in this, but it's a really, really interesting kind of thing. There's really nothing like Centuries of Sorrow. It's kind of a death metal record, but the songs are really catchy and memorable, and it's like not as dense as a typical death metal band would have been around this time, 94, I believe. And then, I don't know what happened. Immediately following, they re-released this in wait, there was a couple years between this and this, but there must have been some kind of, maybe they got into some amazing drugs or something, but Witchcraft came out. And this is the most symphonic, orchestral, insanely well composed black metal maybe there ever has been. It's fucking amazing, and I can't urge you enough to check this out. Probably could have benefited from a better album cover. Oh, I should work on that. But the logo is fucking sick as all shit. So Wounded Love Records put this out. If you like Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk by Emperor, and you should, you really ought to, this is a companion piece like no other. I'm not even going to compare it to Anthems because these records are both phenomenal, but there's no reason you shouldn't love this record if Anthems is up your alley. I'm always really impressed by the drumming on this record. I think Torquemada, he also did a great job on the Centuries of Sorrow stuff, but I think he was always trying to challenge himself to reinvent himself as a drummer and do things that weren't just blasting, and always do something that didn't repeat himself, step over his own toes. I think he's really a kind of an underappreciated drummer. And he also does a great job on the following full-length, Soul Blight. Napalm Records put this one out, and I'm blanking on what year this came out. Again, these were recorded in Grieg Holland. This came out in '98, so this is just a year later. And it shows. It's really just kind of a part 2 of Witchcraft. It's the only thing wrong with it is that it's 99% the album that this one was. It's just not the first one to come along for that band. And there's some really, really great riffs on here. There's a riff on, is it A Voice from the Starless Domain? I think the opening riff. It's like the longest riff I've ever heard, but it's the second you hear it, it's stuck in your head. Really, really good stuff. I think if you look on my channel, there's some live footage of these guys from back in the early demo days. If you're wanting to get rid of an LP copy of Witchcraft, get a hold of me. I am dying to get a copy of that for a reasonable price. And then they released The Shepherd and the Hounds of Hell. And there's really no way around it. This record sucks because it's not anything like the rest of their stuff. It sucks because it's just like a retro kind of black thrash record. But I don't know. It's probably not as bad as I remember it, but I never, ever, ever want to listen to this record, and I never want to believe that this is one of my favorite bands. What a really terrible swan song to go out on. I don't think these guys will ever get back together again. It's really sad, but what an incredible band they were. So, that does it for this edition of Third Wave, Second Rate Norwegian Black Metal Bands. I've got a list of a couple more bands I would maybe like to do a video for. This series is by no means dead. I just haven't done one in a while. I'd like to think that this series kind of takes a little bit more thought to explain these records to you, and I'd like to put more thought into these. And obviously, I think when I'm done with the Norwegian bands, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more bands. So maybe 2 more videos about Norway, and I think I should have the whole gamut covered. Obviously, then we're going to move on to Sweden. So I'll start working on a list of Swedish bands and start doing that. I don't know. I don't know where I would go after Sweden. There, you could say United States, Finland would be pretty good. I'm thinking about maybe Germany, but Norway, that's my jam right there. The most underrated bands, I think. Underrated Norwegian black metal is like my stuff. Anyways, I'm rambling. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Good night.